Buckingham Palace, official London residence of Britain's sovereign since 1837, is probably one of the world's most famous addresses, with a facade that is familiar to all and an inside that is wrapped in mystery. Its quadrangle and grand entrance is the ceremonial centrepiece for the nation's welcome, be it to kings, queens, presidents or diplomats. And it also provides the same welcome when, for a score or more days a year, the doors of the grand entrance are open to recipients and their guests to receive their honour at the investiture ceremony.
Yes, that's it, yes.
Nowadays, tens of thousands of people see the staterooms and gardens either as guests to one of a series of summer garden parties or as visitors to the summer opening every August and September. But very few get this special invitation. At 8 o'clock in the morning, London is already alive to another working day. And for more than 100 men and women who are anxiously making their way to the capital, it's the culmination of many weeks of preparation. It's the day of their investiture at Buckingham Palace. Preparations at the palace are well underway. Everything in the staterooms, including the ballroom, scene of many state and official occasions, and where today's investiture will take place, are given detailed and careful attention. More than 20 investitures are held at Buckingham Palace each year, in the spring, the summer and the autumn. For most of those receiving an honour, this is probably the first and only time in their lives they will be received by the Prince of Wales in the ballroom at Buckingham Palace. The honours system and the concept of the investiture as we know it today is relatively new, given that the history of the monarchy spans over 1,000 years. Honours for chivalry have been around for centuries, but it was largely due to the Queen's grandfather, George V, who in 1917 established the Order of the British Empire, so that honours could be more widely given to deserving citizens, no matter what they did, men and women, for their contribution to the war effort. With the ending of the First World War and the armistice in 1918, the King extended the range of recipients to include those from the world of science, the arts and literature, as well as the voluntary and charitable sectors. A short walk from Buckingham Palace across Green Park at St James's Palace is the Central Chancery. It's part of the Lord Chamberlain's office, and it's responsible for administering the orders of chivalry and maintaining the records of all appointments, promotions and deaths within the order.
She's 109.
They also take the lead in organising investitures and the sending out of invitations, together with warrants signed by the Queen.
How many have we got then for tomorrow, Rachel?
We were 95 people coming today, but I'm afraid we've lost one. Mr. Mason has gone into hospital, and so we're down to 94.
94. And how many guests now, do you think?
It's 279 guests.
279.
One gentleman is apparently slightly deaf, but I think he wears a hearing aid.
He's got a hearing aid, and there's no need for a sign language interpreter, is there?
No, not this time. No.
Well, I think that's it. I think we've covered all the points now.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Following the compilation of the New Year's and Queen's Birthday honours lists, the details of the awards are first checked against the records held by the Central Chancery before being sent for publication in the London Gazette. When the various insignia arrive from the manufacturers, each decoration is very carefully scrutinised for blemishes and then stored in the Central Chancery's vaults to await its recipient. The investiture is a very special occasion, and each recipient will take away an impression of magnificent sights and sounds that will be long remembered and talked about. Part of that sense of occasion is given by the Yeomen of the Guard, arriving here from their headquarters at St James's Palace. Created by Henry VII in 1485 after his victory at the Battle of Bosworth Field, they're not only the oldest of the royal bodyguards, having given long, faithful and continuous service to the sovereign for over 500 years, but they're also the oldest military corps in the United Kingdom and probably the world. There's no doubt that investitures are stage managed with military precision. Each recipient must be in the right place at the right time, be briefed as to what to expect when reaching the dais, and what to do once the honour has been presented. The timing is well rehearsed and must be accurate for it all to begin at 11 o'clock. The Green Drawing Room, the first of the staterooms at the top of the grand staircase, is richly furnished and includes chairs made in the 1820s for Windsor Castle. It has a grand piano purchased by George IV in 1820, originally destined for the music room gallery at Brighton Pavilion. And on top of the cabinet below the portrait of the Duke of Wellington is a 1758 Sèvres porcelain potpourri vase that probably once belonged to Madame de Pompadour. It's just one of the many staterooms frequently used for receptions, but today, while the room is readied and the props are set, there is time for new knights to get acquainted. Their briefing is carried out by the Controller of the Lord Chamberlain's office, Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Ford.
Here we are. We're in the Green Drawing Room at the moment, and the investiture will actually take place, conducted by the Prince of Wales today, in the ballroom. I think really the best thing I can do really is walk myself through the system, the process that you'll be going through, and if you wish to take any questions afterwards. And if I can just sort of set the scene by standing in this doorway, which replicates almost exactly the sort of doorway you'll find yourself standing in at the head of a queue in due course. Two people quite central to your lives, close in at this point. Firstly, Alexander de Montfort, who will be standing in the doorway here, who for the last time I promise you'll be ticking off your names to make sure the right person's going forward. And then Lieutenant Colonel Gordon Birdwood, gentleman usher of the Queen, will be your last safe port of call en route to receive your awards. So, Alexander invites you to move forward. Forward you go. Alongside to Gordon here, and you wait. Surname. Surname is called. Forward you go. 3 or 4 paces. Turn. Face the Prince of Wales. Dip of the head. Curtsy is appropriate. Now for one of you, and it's Sir Ian McAllister, that's Sir Ian. Just for one of you, this stool will be in the way because you're receiving knighthood, the accolade. And for you, and you'll have a chance to practice this afterwards, Sir Ian, just put your foot up against the edge of the stool, take the handle in your right hand, and down you go into a resting motion on your right knee. Prince of Wales will place the sword upon your right shoulder, then your left shoulder. There are no words said at this point at all. There's no arise, Sir Hero, or anything like that. So up you get and move to the left of the stool. And here we are back in picture with everybody else now. receive your awards, conversation, handshake, reverse, dip of the head, curtsy, turn to the right, out the door.
George IV's original palace lacked a large room for state and official entertaining, but Queen Victoria rectified that shortcoming by adding the ballroom in the mid-1850s, first used in 1856 for a grand ball to celebrate the ending of the Crimean War. These days, it's one of the rooms used for the annual diplomatic reception, attended by 1,500 guests, ambassadors, diplomats and their wives, accredited to the Court of St James's. It's also the setting for state banquets, concerts and performances of the arts. Way back in 1856, it had the distinction of being the largest entertaining room in London, but today it's just the largest room in Buckingham Palace. At 122 feet long, 60 feet wide and 45 feet high, the ballroom could, with clever stacking, accommodate about 50 London double-decker buses.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. May I now ask if there is anyone in this room who thinks they're going to get an award today? You're there ahead of me. You're sitting in the ballroom of Buckingham Palace, which is the scene for state banquets, the annual diplomatic reception, investitures, and a number of other state occasions. At present, there are about 25 investitures a year at Buckingham Palace, each one being for approximately 100 people. There's one at the Palace of Holyrood in Edinburgh, and occasionally there's one in Cardiff Castle. They're held by the Queen or by the Prince of Wales on Her Majesty's behalf. There are 4 gentlemen ushers on duty for each investiture, of whom I am one, and we help to organise the day's proceedings. Shortly after I finished, 5 yeomen of the Queen's bodyguard of the Yeomen of the Guard will enter the ballroom and take up position on the dais. The Yeomen of the Guard are the oldest royal bodyguard in the world, having been founded in 1485 in the reign of King Henry VII. At 11 o'clock precisely, the Prince of Wales and his party will enter the ballroom by the door on my left, escorted by 2 Gurkha orderly officers, which is a custom instituted by Queen Victoria in 1876. Please stand when His Royal Highness's party enter the ballroom. The string orchestra of the Band of the Irish Guards, under the direction of Major Stephen Barnwell, will play the national anthem. And please remain standing until His Royal Highness bids you be seated. The investiture will then begin. Lord Peel, the Lord Chamberlain, announces the name of each recipient, who will enter through the door on my right. After being invested, the recipients will leave through the door on my left, and then will re-enter the ballroom at the back to take their seats. Please remain seated throughout, as if you stand, others behind you will be unable to see. I might add that does not apply to the people who are sitting on the chairs at the back, who are free to stand up, if only because it will aid them to see what's going on occasionally. Please would you also keep your conversation to a low voice. As if there's a real buzz of conversation, it's quite difficult to hear the names being announced by the Lord Chamberlain. And however great your admiration for a particular recipient, please don't applaud. At the end of the ceremony, the Lord Chamberlain will come forward and will stand in the front of the Prince of Wales. This is the signal for all to stand when the band plays the national anthem. After His Royal Highness has withdrawn, would you please leave by the door through which you entered, and your friends and relations who've been decorated will meet you at the back of the ballroom as you leave. There are today 98 ladies and gentlemen for investiture, and the ceremony should take about an hour and a quarter. Thank you.
Before the ballroom became the centre for state entertaining, Queen Victoria used the picture gallery for large banquets. It's 155 feet long, the length of 2 tennis courts, and was designed by John Nash, as were many of the state rooms, for George IV to display his outstanding collection of Dutch and Flemish pictures, many of which still hang here today. When completed by Nash in the late 1820s, it lacked good light and therefore was not a great success as a gallery built to display fine works of art. And it wasn't until 1914, under Queen Mary's guidance, that it was remodelled to include natural daylight and top lighting, which is how we see it today. There are pictures here that were collected by Charles I, Frederick, Prince of Wales, eldest son of George II, by George III, George IV, and Queen Victoria. Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Ford calms any apprehension and nerves with good humour and advice.
Okay, here we are. We're in the picture gallery here of Buckingham Palace, of course. The investiture, which will be conducted today by the Prince of Wales, takes its form in the ballroom. Where's the ballroom? Well, it's halfway between here and Victoria Station, I suppose. But we'll get you there in the right order, in groups, through the East Gallery, through the ballroom, and we'll get you into a corridor that runs alongside that ballroom to a point where you re-enter it in order to receive your awards. You don't have to worry about any of that. No initiative at all required. We'll get you there, as I say, in good order. What I'm going to do, though, is just walk myself through the system or through the process that you'll be required to go through and take any questions or so that you may have afterwards. And I'm going to sort of set the scene by standing in a doorway that I am at the moment, which pretty much replicates the doorway that you'll find yourself standing in at the appropriate moment. At the head of a queue, you're looking into a much larger room than we're currently standing in. And on your right-hand side, you'll see 300 or so of your guests seated, facing your direction, and high right above them is an orchestra playing music. Roughly where I'm pointing at the moment is a low dais, about 6 inches high, 20 feet broad, centred on which will be the Prince of Wales and members of his household. Central amongst that group of people will be the Lord Chamberlain, who's the head of the Queen's household, who will be making announcements over a public address system as to who you are, why you're here, and what award you're about to receive. Where I'm pointing at the moment, another set of doors further away than those currently are, and that is your exit route. 2 people will be central to your lives as you stand in this doorway. Directly on your left here will be a member of my staff, Alexander de Montfort, who for the last time I promise you will be ticking off your names to make sure the right person's going forward. And then there's Lieutenant Colonel Gordon Birdwood, who's gentleman usher to the Queen, who's your last safe port of call, I guess. Because if there's no initiative required until this point, there is a bit after you pass through him. Beyond him is a second gentleman usher who marks the exit route, which, as I say, is through through doorways such as I'm pointing to at the moment. Okay, so here you are at that head of the queue, and Alexander, on your left here, will invite you to go forward. That's his call when you move, please, so do follow his instructions. And when you do receive them, forward you go. Nice, gentle walking pace. It'll be a greater distance than I've just walked at the moment, but you'll find your last safe port of call, as I say, will be Gordon here. Stop by him, please, nice and close, so he can whisper any words of encouragement, should you so need it at that point. And what are you waiting for here? You're waiting to hear your surname to be called over the public address system by the Lord Chamberlain. It's your surname that's the trigger to go forward. With nice words said about you beforehand, nice words said about you afterwards, as I say, the surname. Should you miss that for whatever reason, you'll get a short prod from Gordon here, who will accelerate you forward. And forward you go, 3 or 4 paces that it takes yourself to centre yourself upon the Prince of Wales. Turn to face him. Gentlemen, please, a little neck bow, as I do there, and the ladies, a little curtsy. And then forward you go under your own steam until you get to the point where your toes are up against the edge of the dais on which he is standing. Please do not climb the dais. It does get crowded. And when you get here, he will present you your awards. And in the cases of the gentlemen, I see you've all got hooks placed on your lapels now. In the case of the gentleman, it's a medal. And in the case of the ladies, it'll be a brooch that will be placed upon those hooks. And during the course of that giving, there is a conversation between yourself and the Prince of Wales, which ends when he offers you his hand. Take it, shake it, remember to let it go, and reverse back the 3 or 4 paces that it takes to get to the start point. When you get to this point, please, everything in reverse, dip of the head from the gentleman, little curtsy from the ladies, turn to your right on this occasion, past the second gentleman usher, and through the exit doors. What happens when you go through that exit door? We'll take the awards off you. Very short-lived, all this, isn't it, really? Take the awards off you, box them up, give them back to you, and usher you back into the ballroom where you can witness the balance of proceedings. It is actually very, very simple. And what else can I say? Ladies will take your handbags off you before you go in, and probably depending on the quality of your cuts, you'll get them back afterwards. Good. Well, any questions at all? Yes?
Is there a right or wrong foot?
I don't think there's any particular convention, whatever you're comfortable.
When you did yours, I felt the opposite.
No, well, I'm probably better balanced on my right or something, but don't fall over is the key thing, I think. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm okay to wear my hat.
Hats on, please. Yeah. Thank you very much. OK, we'll pick you up shortly. Many thanks indeed.
The scene is set, the briefings are over, and the investiture is about to begin. It's 11 o'clock.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
On view throughout the palace is a treasure trove of art that establishes the royal collection as one of the major collections in the world today. There is a feast of fine paintings by such great European masters as Rubens, Vermeer, Rembrandt, Van Dyck, Poussin, Zuccarelli and Canaletto. There can be few waiting rooms in the world that offer their visitors such a wonderful display of original art as these staterooms give today's recipients and their guests. Honours and awards are not given lightly. They've been justly earned, and the investiture ceremony is the country's acknowledgement of that particular achievement. Many countries in the world today have honours and awards of one sort or another, but nowhere is the bestowing of titles and decorations performed in such splendid surroundings and with such grace, style and ceremony.
The Venerable Dr. Witharandeniye Kassapa for services to the International Buddhist Relief Organization.
I think one of the most important aspects of an investiture is to be able to reward in a suitable way the selfless service and dedication of so many of these remarkable people. People who've dedicated their lives in all sorts of sort of unseen areas. I'm aware, only too aware, that for the vast majority of people who come to investigate, it is a very important moment in their lives when they have been given an honour and a reward and a thank you for all the marvellous things they've done. The great thing, I believe anyway, is to try and have a word with each one.